I got chatting to the guy sitting next to me at my Level 2 Wine and Spirit Education Trust class. The place you go when you want to learn about the ins and outs of distillation and the history of some of your favorite spirits. As you do, I sparked up a conversation with the Italian by asking him what he did. And then he said, "I'm a bartender at the Connaught Hotel." And at that moment, I knew we would be friends. I'm Susan Schwartz, your drinking companion, and this is Lush Life Podcast. Every week, we are inspired to live life one cocktail at a time by everyone in this industry. Yes, that fateful day about 3 years ago, I met Giorgio Bargiani, now head of mixology at one of the most famous bars in the world, the Connaught Bar in London. We've remained friends ever since, and I have longed to have him on the show to learn a little more about my fellow student, who I found out began his career by polishing plates. Before we begin, you can find links on how to donate to some of your favorite bars during this rough time on the homepage of my website, alushlifemanual.com. Now to Giorgio, who I am sure you will realize very quickly is sitting in his garden.
So I'm from Pisa, a very small city in the heart of Tuscany, very famous worldwide for a tower built in the wrong way. But that tower has been our luck for the last, I don't know how many 100 years, because people want to see Pisa. And it's a very touristic city. And that's really part of my beginning, of my background, because my family has always been in restaurants and shops in general. Like my father always had most of their life, they had restaurants in my city, and my mother family had a parfum shop. So flavor, parfum, food and drinks, they always been part of me, of my background. I'm not from like a very complicated background. I mean, my family is very easy people, and they still are, and that's the beauty of them. But always being very good dealing with people. That's what make my main background. Socializing.
What was it just assumed that you would go into hospitality because of your parents having restaurants?
Not really, because when I was very young, I was very good at school. Like until high school, I was studying a lot. I wanted to study a lot. I think I changed my mind when I was 15, 16, something like that. I started to move back somehow to my roots.
What kind of things were you studying? Like, what were you good at school that you thought you might pursue before leaving?
I was very good writing, presenting. I was good with languages. I mean, I think most of the English that I know now in terms of grammars, I studied at the primary, secondary, and high school.
And what do you think it was about hospitality that drew you back in?
I mean, hospitality again was very much part of my life, because every day we were welcoming people. My family was welcoming people. My uncle and aunt, they had a restaurant since the year I was born. My grandfather opened his own restaurant in the 1950 or 1960. So it's a very long story. And as much as my father family were very much into restaurant, my mother family was even into helping people and inviting people in their house. So was not charity, but I remember my grandfather helping random people, so open his doors to whoever was needed to help. So it's hospitality for me. It's not really, I don't remember it, and I don't think it as complex things, complex service, but more taking care of people. That's a main memory that I have, and that's why probably I came back to it.
So when you were 15 or 16 and you decided you didn't want to start so much, what did you decide to do?
So it was pretty random or casual that thanks to some friends, I went for a summer season in uh, in, in the Isola d'Elba, which is a very small island very close to Tuscany, and actually wasn't really a season. It's supposed to be 2 weeks holiday that these friends, they were managing a nightclub there. They invite me to, Giorgio, we have a spare bed. Come, you are our guest for 2 weeks. But so I left. I brought my scooter there. I brought some money and my swim, outwear and swimwear, whatever. But the 2 weeks they became 2 months,
And
and
what were you doing while you were there?
so at the beginning, I just meant to uh, help a bit with the parties they were doing in that club, like clock room, or maybe just uh, sponsorizing it, giving tickets and stuff. But suddenly, I finished working behind the bar, and behind the bar, very little, like helping with ice and like a barback job, and at the table, serving at the table. So that was my first job outside my family business. So the first time I really touch a drink in the sense that I might know now, and that was really a life changing experience because as well at the time I was 16. I didn't really mean to work, but let's keep that. I was 16, and the people with the age closer to mine was 23 or 24. So I was really a kid compared to
Yeah.
all of them, and most of them they were even older. So was really, I mean, nothing bad happened to me, don't get me wrong, but was incredible, and I learned so much. Not just in terms of, actually, in terms of drink, I didn't learn much. I learned much more in terms of how to deal with people, how to connect with people, how to share such an experience. And when I came back, that's when I say, okay, I love working in nightclubs. I have fun. I make money out of it. So I finish my high school, and then I start working
And did
in
you start
nightclubs.
working in Pisa?
Yes. My first job was in Pisa with the same people that they brought me to Isola del, but they at the time had a club in Pisa where I started as a waiter. And in, let's say, a couple of years, the owner gave me trust and made me, I don't want to say manager, but because in Italy it's very different from here, but sort of manager. I was dealing with the supplier, I was dealing with the staff, and I was coordinating the evenings, the main nights that we were doing.
You were
And that was,
super young.
yeah, at the time I was 20, 21, 22, something like
Mhm.
that.
And did you then think this is what I want my life to be? I mean, were you getting those ideas?
So probably because I was very young, and the world of nightclubs, it's very shiny, it's very glittering. So you think, wow, that's super cool. That's what I want to do. But with the time and with the meeting of my now unfortunately ex-girlfriend, I start to think in a different way. Even though I was growing in nightclubs and I was doing more and more, the life that you have in nightclub make you think a lot and make you prioritize things. I knew that I was loving dealing with people and like taking care of people and doing drinks and especially try and taste expensive things and food and champagne and everything. I kn- I felt that that wasn't the right way to progress and to make a career out of it. That's why suddenly I change.
Mhm. And did you know what you wanted to change to?
I didn't, and I did in a way that I knew that I couldn't do that for the rest of my life. I knew that there were more professional ways of making my job. I wasn't really aware of which was the one I should follow because I could easily come back to my family business and be part of it and suddenly
Right.
get a share or open a new place together with my family. You know, the option, there were few in my city. But those years, we're talking about 2011, 12, were the one where social media were blooming, were growing. You know, like Facebook was already quite well established, but Instagram was probably at the beginning.
Yeah, right.
And
Very new.
yeah,
Yeah, super
uh,
new.
YouTube was widely used, not as today, but still was big for the time. And thanks to this platform, I got to see uh, the world,
Uh-huh.
what was going on in the world.
What do you think you were searching then? Like, what were you searching? Different bartenders, different
Uh,
bars?
so the fact is that at the time I was working in Forte dei Marmi, which is the north part of Tuscany, a very posh area, you know, where again we were working in nightclubs at the volume and at the speed of a nightclub without taking much care about the product we were delivering. And when I say product, usually these days when I talk about product, I talk about the whole thing. At the time, for me, the product was the glass and what was inside the glass and the bottle we were giving. Yeah, then music and environment and everything else was the duty of the PR people, of
Mhm.
the manager of the club, no ours. These days, for me, product is much more wide, is a much more wide thing. But um, I wasn't looking for certain bartender because honestly, I didn't know. Is when I went to Bologna for a cocktail training, cocktail masterclass. I met some people that these days are still my friends. Daniele Dalla Pola that lives in Miami, Gianni Zottola, which I met many years before in Isola d'Elba, and Federico and Giovanni, which are the owners of a bartending school called Dream Factory in Bologna. So thanks to them, I saw for the first time people like Ago Perrone, Salvatore Calabrese, Simone Caporale, people that for me are still heroes, are still legend, but they are part of my daily life now, you know, especially Ago. Um, so when I came back after a couple of trainings I did in Bologna, I went for a meeting with the gentleman that at that time was my director in the club in Forte dei Marmi. And it's funny how I have a meeting with him next week because now he's managing the Starbucks roaster in Milan. But you know that's a long story. I don't want to lose myself in there. So I went to this gentleman. His name is Leone, and I say, Leone, I heard that he had hotel background, 5-star hotel background, and researching about Simone and Ago and Salvatore, I found out they were all working in 5-star hotels.
Right? Five-star hotels in London.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And funny enough, London has always been my dream since when I was even younger than 15, because I've been to London many times. Like before I moved, probably 10, 12 times. The fact is that, especially when I was very young, I wanted to move to London at some point. I didn't know to do what. I was just in love with London, with the speed of the city, with the opportunities that you have. In fact, when I finished high school and I was 19, I came to London for an whole month before university because I planned to move, but again, I didn't really know what to do.
Mhm.
I didn't speak English, of course. I still don't, but at the time I didn't at all. And so after a month, I came back and I went to university. But the this gentleman, Leone, when I had this meeting with him, I say, listen, Leone, I saw these bartenders and their bars, and I'm very fascinating. And most likely, I would like to move to London to work in their places. And Leone is a very how do you say, like, not skeptical, but is very clinical when he talks. It's very uh, rational, very like straight to the point. Say, okay, Giorgio, I don't personally know this gentleman. I don't probably he knew Salvatore, but he didn't know Ago and Simone. I say what I can tell you about them, as you already researched, they are working hotel bars, so bars inside the hotel. So as I have a hotel background, I can tell you that before you learn how to work in a hotel bar, you need to work. You need to able to work in a hotel.
Yeah.
Because now I can see, in your job you're very confident. Like nothing can stop you. Long hours or whatever. But that is different. The pressure that you get is much more psychological rather than physical, and standards are higher, and knowledge you must have is much more. So I said, what's the problem? I'm young, I can do that. I'm sure, as I'm pretty good now here, there won't be a big deal. So he told me, I'm very happy to recommend you to who was my mentor when I started. And like 2 days after, no more than that, I received a call from Portofino, where Mr. Santo Iosa, who I speak with last week, was waiting for me for an interview in February. The place where I then moved to work, and when Mr. Santos still work, is an hotel called Splendido in the harbor of Portofino, and is a seasonal hotel. So open in March, April, and close October, November. So I went in February to Portofino to do this interview with Santo, and he asked me many things, but was very calm. Was very different from all the people I met in my career so far. And he asked me, what do you want to do for your, in your future? Which are your expectations from this job? What do you think you're gonna do? And I think I knew the answer, but in reality I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
Because when they asked me to come to Venice probably the following month or the same month for a week training, I was like, what is that? So because Splendido is part of LVMH, at the time was called Orient Express Company, where the Cipriani Hotel
Right.
in
I was going to say the
Venice
Cipriani. I
is
know the
part of the
Splendido
company.
well. And I
Yeah,
know the Cipriani well.
yeah.
Yes. So you
So
had, gosh, trial by fire, a week at the Cipriani.
yeah, I was staying in a room, like a guest,
Oh,
because while we were training for restaurant, because the job I got was commis, like runner, or like the basic front of house restaurant job that you can get. And so they sent me a week doing intensive training every day, like 8 to 10 hours training a day, where, for instance, when we were doing role play of breakfast, lunch, dinner, there was someone filming us. And then in the classroom, we were looking at the videos to see our mistakes, for instance. Then we were doing wine training, posture training, uh, emotional intelligence training, some things I even never heard about.
what did you think that first week? Were you excited or
Yeah,
like blown out of the water?
so the fact is, I was looking for knowledge, I was looking for training, I was looking for technical aspects that they were the one I was missing the most. I was funny, as people might think I still am. I was engaging, I was talking to everyone, I was very social, but I didn't have much knowledge about spirit, about wine, about service. So that week for me was like a year of university. I learned so much. I encountered stuff like uh, quality assurance or standard that never heard about before. Timings on how long it should take to say hello to someone or to greet someone, and that really blew my mind. But the season then started like 2 months after, when I really, all my um, confidence was killed.
Oh, no.
I didn't know how to do anything. I really didn't know how to put a plate on a table, how to put a tablecloth, how to serve a coffee, or most important, I I didn't know how to talk to people in a 5-star way.
Oh, so interesting.
And funny enough that my first trainer at the time was my chef de rang, and his name is Matteo Baccanelli, who is actually in the room next to mine because he's my flatmate. And after almost 8 years, we're still friends, and we're still sharing this adventure together. So I did the first season. The first month was extremely tough. The second month was tough. Then I'll say the third month was okay. But the third month was August, so the most intense of the season. So at the end of the season, went pretty well. They gave me even a little recognition as employee of the season, which unfortunately I never managed to get the prize because I was traveling and the prize was Italy based. So after that, Mr. Santo took me one of my last day, and he told me, Giorgio, when we first met, you told me that you wanted to travel to learn more and more, and ideally travel to the UK. I said London, but he twisted on UK, and he offered me a job in one of the, at the time again, Orient Express property. These days is Belmont by LVMH. That is called Le Manoir 4 Saisons. There is a 2 Michelin star restaurant with 32 rooms in the countryside of Oxford.
Yes, one of the most famous restaurants in the UK.
Yeah. One, so with like, it's an incredible place. And they offered me the job for coming again. So the same position. And, after a, let's say, quite successful first season in an hotel restaurant, I didn't want to say that I was confident, but much better than before. And
but you won Employee of the Year, right?
I even won this little award. So even wasn't just myself and my confidence coming back, but they were pumping me a bit. So when I got there,
you thought you knew what you were doing.
Wasn't that easy. So I remember.
Was it? Wait, I have a question. Was it because it was a 2 Michelin star restaurant and hotel? Do you think that's what made it a little different?
No, it was a miss. That for sure wasn't one of the points, because as much as I never worked with standard before, I moved from 5-star standard of Portofino to 5-star plus 2 Michelin star standard at Le Manoir. But the fact is, at least in Portofino, I was understanding what they were saying to me.
Oh, of course, I totally forgot.
I didn't understand what they were saying to me. Especially
how was your English? How was it?
I mean, as I said, I think grammarly, even though I still make mistakes while I talk, but while I write, grammarly, I'm quite good. Listening and, of course, pronunciation wasn't great, so I struggled big time for the first month. And the struggle was big and real because I didn't understand what they're telling me. And if I understood, I didn't know anyway. Okay, if they tell you, put a chair under the table, I'll get it and I'll do it. But if they then told me, brush the chair, what does it mean? I get the meaning, but how do I brush a chair? So there was a special brush to brush the chair in a certain way, but I didn't know. So I have to ask things at least twice every time.
Were you thinking this whole time, I really just want to be behind a bar, I don't want to brush a chair? Was that part of it as well?
That was the point. Like sometimes I related this to Karate Kid. No, I don't know if you've seen the movie. It's a very stupid things. My son very stupid, but like in the movie Karate Kid, during his training is like painting wood and cleaning cars, and say, why I do this? And somehow was my point. Why do I need to know how to polish a plate? Why do I need to know how to brush a chair? For me it was pointless. I want to make cocktails.
Right.
But the funny thing, one of the details I remember, I always tell to everyone, and is this detail is really part of my life. So at Le Manoir, you have a 6 weeks shadowing training program, which is, I don't want to say mental, doesn't sound nice, is intense.
Mental in the best way.
No, definitely one of the best training I had in my life. I imagine for 6 weeks, you have someone on your shoulder telling you everything you should do and you shouldn't do several times during a day.
In a different language.
Exactly. With a very different accent, because most of the people at Le Manoir are French.
All right. Of course, that too.
So I didn't know English, and especially I didn't know English with a French accent. So my very first day, the person that was shadowing me was a girl, French girl. Her name is Karen. At the end of the lunch service, show me how to polish plate. How to polish a plate that wasn't even used for food. Was a presentation plate. When you sit down and there is a plate on the table, but you don't eat on that. So there was a signature plate designed by Richard Ginori for Villers-Bosch. I don't remember. I don't want to say. I don't want to tell anyone. Was a signature place of Raymond Blanc, plate of Raymond Blanc that everyone was very fascinated about. So as commies, we had to polish it every day. And we are talking about 80 to 100 cover for lunch and 60, 70 to 80, 90 cover for dinner. So a lot of plates. So what I did, I started polishing in the way I thought was good. And she was checking each and every one and send them back. That's not right. That's not right. And I was asking, what's wrong? I couldn't see what was the problem. And she, in a very, very French English, look, there are fingerprints in there. Fingerprints? What are fingerprints? I didn't even know what fingerprint means, probably. But I said, no, I don't see anything. The plate is clean. No, do it again. And she really scared me. It was like 1 hour, 2 hour polishing plates like not tomorrow. And I didn't get why I was doing this and, what was the point. But long story short, last year, this girl asked me to bring her to her husband for her wedding. So, like sometimes you meet people and the perception of them change, because she was giving me very hard times, but she was doing it in a way that wasn't soft, but was true, was real. She wanted me to improve.
Of course.
And now is definitely one of my best friends. But anyway, so Le Manoir, from being extremely tough, extremely challenging. I remember the night of that day I was polishing plate. I came back to my very, very small room where I didn't even have a wardrobe, to give you an idea. I came back there and I say, what do I do? At the time I had a girlfriend. The girlfriend was in Italy. I was alone. I didn't have any friends. The village of Le Manoir is so small that there is only one pub and one post office, and there is a bus every hour until 7. So I couldn't go anywhere for dinner or to relax somewhere, no, because the pub was closed early. So, and most of the time I was working. So for me, it was like very tough. But I couldn't give up at that point. I was basically at the beginning. So I had to do at least the time I was meant to be there, which was until the following season in Portofino. when I left the Manoir, I must say that I was sad.
Mhm.
I understood how much I learned, the people I met, that still I'm seeing these days, you know. So for me, I had knowledge, I had technical skills, but I had friends.
Of
I
course.
really, you know, I enrich my person before my professional side. You know, my personal
Because
side.
you all had to do it together, you
Yes, yeah,
know.
it was hard for everyone. It wasn't hard just for me, you know,
Uh-huh.
because what you know, the standard there are very high, and that's why the place is incredible. And the experience that you have there is unique. But anyway, managed to come back to Portofino. But when I came back, I realized straight away that already was not boring, but you know, was coming back, was really going back and slowing down and doing in a more relaxed somehow way. Even though that summer I tried to implement what I learned in in the Le Manoir in the Oxfordshire to implement the standard and the way of working in Portofino, even though I was still a commie. So I wasn't a manager. You know, I didn't come back as a manager. I came back as a commie. I said, I learned this, and that. We should do this. We should. And they were even listening to me. But, you know, at the same times, the two reality were very different. You know, in Portofino, we were a team of 15. At Le Manoir, we were a team of 60. So
Oh boy.
you know, was a huge difference, and
Yeah,
the
huge.
possibility were very different, you know. But anyway,
So what do you think
what?
drove you to look no, obviously that drove you to look for something new. And where
Yeah,
did
yeah,
you
yeah.
think your next step would be?
So at this stage, I said, okay, at the end of this summer, I will go to London. Doesn't matter what, I will find a job. You know, I have some skills. At this stage, I had some connection in the UK at Le Manoir, not in London, but I realized now more than ever that Le Manoir is very solid in the UK and so solid that London recognized Le Manoir for what they do.
Oh, of
So,
course.
you know, these days I still see my manager at the time because I'm very well known and respected in London. So I said, okay, I will find a job, you know. And at this stage, I wanted to bring my girlfriend with me. I said, you come with me. You know, she was just graduated as a nurse. So, you know, we will go together. We will find the America. We will find, you know, our future. But I didn't have a place or you know like a bar or someone really uh, I could go to or speak to.
Was it that you wanted to definitely be in bars?
Yeah, at that stage, yes. At the
Mhm.
stage, I wanted to be in bars, and the bars I wanted to be, I knew which one they were: the Connaught Bar,
Of course.
the Artisan Bar,
Mhm.
the American Bar Savoy, or uh, Night Jar at the time was very fascinating for me. Even though it was an hotel bar, but still, you know, I think I thought I could learn a lot. So was the season was very very busy. Was high season. Was beginning of August, end of July when I received a call from a very good friend of mine that I was always in touch. Wasn't really out of the blue. You know, we were talking to each other throughout the previous 2 years, 2 3 years, because we were working together in Forte dei Marmi in the nightclub. He was a flair bartender, and in that nightclub I was working at the tables. I was serving bottles of champagne and stuff. And he left Italy before me. He went to London as sommelier, actually as commis sommelier. And his first job was at the Dorchester. But the day he called me, he told me that from the Dorchester he moved to the Connaught. And when I heard that, I said, "Wow, so you work with Ago Perrone?" But yes, I do. But he works in a bar in the Connaught Bar, and I work in Elenda Rose, which is our two Michelin star restaurant, as commis sommelier. So you know, was just at the beginning. The name of this gentleman is Daniel Manetti. Daniel today cover the position of wine director of the Connaught Hotel. So he's in charge of all the wine that we receive and we sell and that we have. And that day, man, Daniel told me, Giorgio, there is a position as a casual barback at the Connaught. I say, what are you waiting for? What?
Yeah, come now.
Yeah, like he told me that's the opportunity you were looking for long time, and you didn't even look for it.
Yeah.
It just arrived. Like I felt like like when you take a direction and you push hard in that direction, things at some point they're coming. You don't really need to look for it. No, I never
Of
applied for
course.
a job myself. I never did the research myself. I received an offer.
It's crazy. Well, obviously we
Yeah,
know you got the job.
yeah, I did. But it was funny the way it went, because I was in Portofino, and I said, okay, tell them I'll be there in a month, because it was
They're like,
beginning
no
of
way.
August. They told me, no way,
It'll be gone in 2
like,
minutes.
like it's one of the most desirable job in the bar industry, And I say, yeah, but I'm not. I want to be correct. I want to be fair. I don't want to go to Mr. Santo and say, ciao, I'm leaving. And honestly, I wasn't even sure they were taking me.
Right.
There was a position open, but at the end of the day, I had to go through 3 or 4 interviews that I did. And again, yeah, I could speak English better than the year before, but wasn't, like I spent 6 months in the UK. I haven't been living there for 10 years. So
Thank God they're all Italian at the
yeah,
Connaught, right?
yeah. At the time, less than now, but still.
Uh,
So they told me, if you want the job, you need to come next week for an interview. Next week was the 8th of August,
oh boy.
2014, the peak of the summer season. And funny enough, the 8th of August is the birthday of the Connaught Bar. The Connaught Bar
Yes.
opened its door the 8th, 2008, 6 years after I was showing up to do an interview. So I went to Mr. Santo and said, Santo, I need to go to London next week. Can you give me a couple of days of holiday?
He's
What?
like, no way.
No.
No way.
So the best I can do for you, especially because you're going for a job interview, is giving you your day off plus half day. So you come back the day after your days off for dinner. And that's what
He
I
was
did.
very kind. He was very
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
to do
yeah. I
that. You
mean,
know that.
at
Yeah.
the end, they know what they offer is seasonal.
Of course.
So they don't want Santo really care about the people in the way. His people in the way. He say, you need to work this winter to improve your knowledge, to
Right.
get some money and to do your experience, and then you come back. He's very.
Right.
He was very confident that I was coming back.
Right.
I never came back so far. So in one day, I went to London. I did my job interview.
Now, was that
with
job
HR.
interview was it with Ago?
The first one was with HR.
Okay.
Then I did my trial shift, was something like 6-7 hours of trial shift. And then at the end of it, Ago took me. For me, it was already, like I must say I met Ago before, but once briefly, like
Okay.
in my very first visit at the Connaught Bar, by the way. But yeah, but for me, part of the dream was fulfilled. I spent time behind that bar. I worked with them. I saw what they were doing. Was like, and I always tell this story that I was laughing like an idiot, and he was looking at me like, why this guy is smiling so much? Is he taking a piece of all of us? And do on the side of the bar we have 2 gates. So Ago was right behind me, and I was passing through the gate to start my shift or to go in the back, whatever. And there was a very small piece of paper on the floor. I stopped. I don't even remember. I'll say the story. But I stopped. I look at the piece of paper. I took it from the floor and I throw it in the bin. So he said from that moment, he realized that there was something good in me.
Oh.
And that made his mind to say, okay, we hire him. At the end, they weren't hiring me for bar manager position. They could get rid of me the week after. It wasn't a big deal. But I came back to Portofino, and by the way, that night I stayed at Matteo place, my friend that we live together now. He had me in his place, and the day after I came back to Portofino to finish my season, without an answer, of course. I didn't know.
No.
I was already over the moon, but I didn't know. They called me back beginning of September, so quite a long time.
Yeah.
And they asked me to come back for another interview. Same procedure, and I was still working in Portofino. So again, I went for one day to do. And by the way, at the end of my trial shift, I did the interview with Ago.
Yeah.
And so I went back just for like 20 minutes interview with the F&B director, which now that I'm in the job for a while, I know that is almost, especially if such a position was a formality. He didn't ask me anything major, like why you want to work here, and what's your future, like nothing, challenging or so. Yeah, another day in London, day in and out, came back to Portofino. A few days after, when Santo asked me, you want to stay for another month? I have the opportunity for you to stay, or what are you going to do? Santo, I'm leaving next week. Because my contract was ending. So I was respectful, I said, listen,
Of course.
I appreciate the fact that you want to renew my contract, but I'm leaving.
I'm off to the Connaught.
Yeah. And the 16th of September 2014, I moved to London. The 18th of September 2014, I was working at the Connaught Bar.
So we met at a WSET class. That must have been right when you were beginning. It's about 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2 or 3 years after I started.
Oh, it was. To me, it seems like I've known you forever. Because I think I did the class around 3.5 years ago, at least.
Yeah, it was 2016, probably.
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
Which is almost 4 years ago.
Yeah. Or either end of 2016 or anyway, yeah.
So now that you have this job and you've had it for a while, and you can look back, what do you think because you worked at some wonderful hotels, Splendido, the Memoir, wonderful, obviously not in the position as, head of mixology or even in mixology, but what do you think about your time at the Connaught? Can you reflect on that and kind of what you've learned through these years that you've been there?
So, yes, I mean, sometimes I still get very emotional, and for me, it's unreal what happened in the last 6 years, because the Connaught Bar is a bar. I always say that as magical as it can be, as unique as it can be, is a bar. But throughout the years, there always been a consistency in the innovation, but not the innovation in the way that every year we are creating something new. We are not creating, the latest technique. We are consistent in what we do, adapting and changing every year. And when I joined the Connaught Bar wasn't a new bar, just opened, no one knew about, was already the Connaught Bar, was already up there, was already one of the best bar in the world. So, even my feeling were like, okay, yes, I'm here, but I'm the last one of the last one, and I wouldn't make a difference. And probably I don't do these days, but still, at the time I was like, I'm here to learn. But after 6 years, I'm still learning. Because every year we look at ourselves in a critical way where we need to reinvent the way. There's always the same way that we approach our guests, that we create our drinks, that we treat our staff, that we train our staff, that we talk to the world, and then with the time, I started to travel and to speak about my experience globally. And Connaught Bar is unique. The Connaught Hotel is wonderful, but the Connaught Bar has got a vision that has been followed from day one, 2008, and is still there, very strong, even though the only person that is there from day one is Ago. Probably that's the reason why, but we all believe in that, especially the old one, me, Maura, we believe in that every day, and we strive for that in a genuine way. No one forces us to do what we do, but you want to be part of it. You want to feel part of it. And I'm not talking about the success. I'm talking about be there, for our guests, for the people that are coming, creating them memories, creating them something they bring home with them and they remember. We're not working for the awards. We're working for the happiness of our guests every day. And all the technical skills, the knowledge that I was looking for are still extremely important, but they are not what makes the Connaught Bar what it is.
Since you brought that up about the technique, for you as the growth of your bartending, because you had worked at nightclubs really and done some bartending, were you just like blown away by what was being created there? I mean, about your progression of learning from bartender to mixologist to head of mixology?
So I think it was a very seamless flow, because when I was at Portofino, and even before, when I started with bartending training in Bologna and stuff, I was studying things on books, and I was looking at demonstration, and I thought, okay, these techniques are very interesting, are very cool, but I look at them like chemistry, I don't see that happening in Portofino or Le Manoir, because the main core of these two places, exceptional food, exceptional service, but there wasn't such an innovation and such a strong attention on that. So I said, okay, these techniques are only for very, very geeky bartender, for very nerd places. There won't be any hotel bar doing that. Even though, okay, at the Manoir, at the Splendid, I was looking at the restaurant, but there was the bar, and they were miles away from that. And with the time, I understood that, and I embraced that, because Mr. Santo, for instance, was one of the first really teaching me how smile is important, how be kind is important, how talk positive is important, without mentioning technical skills, without mentioning technical knowledge. But when I joined the Connaught Bar, most of the techniques I studied on books, they were there, applied in the same way another bar will squeeze the lemon juice in the morning. They were naturally there, but you didn't feel like you were in the lab. I think you still don't feel when you go to the Connaught Bar. If you read on the menu and if you ask the bartender, I will go through the fact that we sous vide, that we distill, this and that. If you don't ask, it's not necessary to ask. Mm-hmm. And you don't feel like you need to know. Because I was studying these techniques, and they are complicated. But not everyone want to study, especially when they are in a bar. Not everyone want to be so focused on the way we make our drinks. They just want to enjoy. That's why our martini is so successful, because it's very easy to understand. We make people smell the essences to make sure they understand the flavor, without long explanation. Like, smell it. You like it? You don't like it. If you like it, go for it. It's very basic, but it's so fascinating, and it's so accessible. and make you feel very important because we put you under the spotlight in a good way, not like to embarrass you. We put you under the spotlight in a way that you are the protagonist, the drink is yours, so you decide, you are in charge, and that what makes the martini uh, so unique, with making people at their ease, not
I think,
putting them in a
yeah.
position where they suffer.
No, absolutely. I think I remember when I met with Ago, it had been a while since I had your Bloody
Yeah,
Mary. And I think the Bloody Mary, you see the martini happening with your
yeah,
wonderful,
trolley, yeah,
yeah, the trolley and all of that. But when you get something which you think of as a simple drink like a Bloody Mary, and you are just taken somewhere so different from that, and from what you expect, that's when that I think is the drink that makes me the nerd, because I want to know, okay, how
yeah,
is this done? This was so
yeah.
amazing. You get the smells, you get everything that you want, but it looks completely different from what you expect. And I
Bloody
think
Mary,
that's
yeah.
what's
Please,
the
please, sorry.
joy. Yeah, what's the joy of the Connaught is it's such a well-known drink, but yet there's no way you could make this at home, really.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's kind of what you want.
I mean, the Bloody Mary is the best example of what I said. The way we make the air, the foam, these days is still unknown to many people. Many people in the world, they look at foam as something extremely new. I always take my mom as example. If I create a drink, will will it be accessible for my mom without knowing anything about about the drink, about the techniques, just about the flavor that she will get? Because in Pisa there is not much going on in terms of mixology. There are some friends that are doing very well, but still, it's a small reality, so need to improve still. But the fact is, the Bloody Mary is a perfect example because you expect the Bloody Mary where in the UK many people drink Bloody Mary, so people are used to it. But when they say something without ice in a coupe with this foam, they start asking questions to themselves. And sometimes these questions are asked to us, but sometimes they're not. They just say, "This Bloody Mary is amazing. That's it."
Right.
It's what we want. This That recipe is 12 years old, but it looks
I know.
so actual.
I know. It's so
You
new.
know,
So just one more thing before I let you go.
please, please.
Now, as the head of mixology, can you kind of tell me what you do day to day in that
So,
role?
so okay. I think my role has got some standard duties for any head mixologist in the world in terms of uh, like bar management, in terms of stock, cost. Then depends. Some bars they give it to the manager. Some bars to the assistant manager. But what I do, I take care of stock, spirit, ingredients, uh, liquors, fruit, everything. I'm of course in charge of the menu, the creation of the cocktail menu. But as I think having Argo with us, we have a sort of special structure in place where Argo is the main person. Then of course I'm his right arm, as he always say. But we do create the menu as a team. I don't do drinks and I say, okay, that's a menu. We do as a team. We sit down all together. We we discuss ideas. Everyone can put in ideas in. We mainly do with the bartender and barback teams because of course they're the most passionate about creating drinks. Still these days, once a week we have a meeting on Zoom and we discuss the ideas. Of course we can't try drinks, but that's what we do. um, I like to be very much involved in the communication on the bar. That's more my thing rather than my duty. But yes, I always want to share. Like I like social media, so I like to take pictures and share it. I like to find way on how to promote the bar, and that comes to the fact that I travel And while I travel, I talk about the bar, I talked about what we do, I talked about my story. And but more on a daily, day-to-day basis, for sure, I take care of people. You know, people sometimes laugh about the fact that I'm always traveling and never at the bar, but at the end of the day, 5 days a week, I'm at the bar. So I'm there waiting for our guests to make drinks, to talk to them. I must say that is more true that lately I do less drinks. I let the young boys making the drinks, and I go to tables, talk to guests, or listen to feedback. So I do whatever it takes to make them happy and leave them a memorable experience.
Well, I can't wait to see you back in the bar.
Yeah,
So,
me too. I can't wait to go there.
save a Bloody Mary for me.
Yeah,
And thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay. It would have been remiss of me to not ask him where he loved to drink around the world. You won't be surprised by his first answer. So if you had to drink anywhere else but the Connaught, of course, I don't know, what are your favorite places around the world?
So I always divided the world in 3 sections. I think now I can divide it in 4. Europe, there's not much choice, the Connaught Bar. The US will be the Nomad Bar in New York. Asia is the Manhattan Bar in Singapore. And my latest discovery is maybe Sammy talking about Australia.
It was so lovely to have Giorgio on my show. You can find a few of the Connaught Bar's signature cocktails already on my site, lushlifemanual.com, from when I interviewed Ago Perrone, the director of mixology. For this week, I asked Giorgio what he recommended for those with a little bit of time on their hands. Our cocktail of the week is Giorgio's Flight of the Negronis. To begin with, you'll need 4 empty bottles and a big bowl. Then start by mixing together in your very big bowl 750 ml of Sipsmith gin, 750 ml of Martini Rubino, 750 ml of Martini Bitter, and 750 ml of still water. Mix those together in your very big bowl and then split those equally into 4 different bottles. Leave 1 bottle untouched for a classic Negroni. Infuse 1 bottle with 1 to 2 whole peels of your favorite citrus fruit for at least a week, and then start tasting it daily until it's perfect for you. Infuse 1 of the other bottles with 2 to 3 grams of your favorite dry spice for at least 1 hour, and then start tasting it hourly until you love it. Giorgio likes Szechuan pepper. And last but not least, infuse 1 bottle with 50 grams of your favorite fresh herbs for at least 1 day, and then start tasting it daily until you love that one too. Giorgio used eucalyptus. Store those in the fridge, and when they're very cold, enjoy them as you wish, with or without ice. You'll find this recipe, more classic recipes, and all the cocktails of the week at lushlifemanual.com, where you'll find links to all the ingredients. I've been so inspired by John Krasinski's YouTube show, Some Good News. The generosity of people has been incredible. My friend Gregory Benjamin has been bringing food deliveries to my parents for at least a month. And knowing someone is watching out for them when I'm here, well, there aren't any words. If that doesn't make you want to buy his award-winning jams and marmalades, then I assure you the taste will. You can find them at preservesandmarmalades.com, and I highly recommend the Dark and Stormy Marmalade. Please support him. Thank you. If you live for Lush Life, make sure you're giving back to the bars you love by donating or taking part in cocktail delivery where you live. Theme music for Lush Life is by Steven Shapiro, who is my cousin, by the way, and used with permission. And Lush Life is always and will be forever produced by Evo Terra and Simpler Media Productions. So check out his podcast Pontifications. Which leaves me to say the wise words of Oscar Wilde: all things in moderation, including moderation, and always drink responsibly and wash your hands and stay safe. Next week, we meet another old friend who might not be a household name, but there's probably not one bar that you've gone into that wasn't designed by him. No wonder his title is Chief Experience Officer. Until that time, bottoms up.